What is going on, everybody? My name is James. Today we are continuing on the 2002 BMW 325xi electric vehicle conversion. Man, that's always a mouthful. So today we're actually making some pretty significant progress, and I've kind of gotten started and I wanted to stop before I got too far so you guys can kind of follow along and see how everything progresses. But today there's a fairly good chance we can at least spin up the drivetrain on the car. And this kind of involved a lot of different things coming together at the right time, mainly getting the battery pack situated and all wired together, along with kind of the bare minimum in terms of the electronics required, like the controller and the contactors, as those need to be wired in to turn on when the car turns on. So that way we can actually get this thing potentially moving here fairly soon. So I'm going to take you guys under the hood and we'll see what kind of progress we've made so far. All right, so I know that this is a bit of a chaotic mess, but it's kind of in the development stage. So this will all be kind of nicely tucked away once I'm able to actually finalize everything here. But as you can see, this is quite different from the last time I left off the previous video, where we were making the transmission adapter and kind of subframe for the electric motor and everything. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link in one of the corners so you can watch that and get up to speed. But as you can see, this is a little bit different. As you can't see the motor, we're now staring at batteries. So this actually went together surprisingly well. I'm actually still impressed as to how these fit in. Originally, my idea was going to be kind of to have a almost like a shelf up in the front with a crash bar around that location, like right around here, and I'd stack the 6 batteries side by side. Well, these are a little bit too wide. I could only get about 4 wide, and so I wanted to find a different way of doing it. Turns out that if I ran them kind of in the direction that the engine was in before, kind of laterally down the length of the car, I can get 4 all the way to the back and then 2 on each side. And that actually means that most of this weight is behind the wheels. You can see that these are the towers for where the wheels are, and a lot of this weight is behind it, meaning that this is going to actually handle pretty well. It's not going to be super front heavy, which I was pretty happy with because that's going to make this a little bit nicer of a handling car. So what I've been doing, and why this is kind of a mess, is I have been going through and making my own battery cables here. So these are maybe, I don't know, 8 or 10 inches, and they have just 2 lugs on the end. I do have some heat shrink over here that I'm going to be putting around the entire thing just to make sure that they're kind of fully insulated from everything. But the reason that these aren't on is that I ordered them from Amazon, and it came with 5 of the right size and 5 of ones that are 2 millimeters too narrow, so I can't fit them on the terminals. But I'll be drilling them out a little bit later to widen them up so I can get the rest of these batteries wired up. And as I mentioned before, these are not the final power plant of this car. These are kind of my development platform batteries because they were free. The only thing that I've spent money on was $50 on these cables and lugs, and then $90 on the 72-volt charger up front, which, as you can see, fit really nicely here and should fit within the bounds of the bumper, making this a very compact system. The controller's off to the right here. You can't see it, but it's tucked to the left of the motor. I don't know if I'll leave it there, but it fits pretty nice right now. And the last major thing that I've been working on, and kind of the thing that's been bringing this all together, is this new fuse panel right here. So what I did, and you can see these 2 green lines coming from kind of over there, is one of these green lines carries a signal as to whether or not the key is on. And that signal turns on a relay. The relay then connects this fuse panel to the positive battery terminal here, powering this fuse panel again on and off with the key. And off of that, we have both contactors, each with their own fuse, and currently one other that goes down to the controller, which gives it battery voltage, turning it on. So that means all of the stuff is now able to be turned on with the key with inline fuse protection, and that should be a pretty safe way of doing all of this. So I'm currently going through and I just finished wiring and kind of heat shrinking a lot of this stuff to make it a little bit nicer, and I'm going to be kind of routing everything here pretty shortly. But right now what I've got to do is go through and widen the holes on these battery terminals, or cables I should say, get them all set up, and then that way this should actually be very close to moving. The only thing that I need to do is get these batteries set up, get them fused, put a fuse in line between the contactors and one of the battery terminals, and we should be pretty good to go. There really isn't much else. I do have a second, this other green wire here is actually soldered to the gas pedal signal, and that's going to communicate to the controller, you know, how much gas we're giving it. So again, realistically, the only thing we need now is the battery voltage to get this thing moving. So I'm pretty excited for that. Once we get to that point, all of this sadly is going to come back out, I know, but I need to go through and kind of make everything a little bit nicer under here. The welding I originally did wasn't very nice, and so I want to redo it with a more kind of professional welder, make it a little bit nicer, because that's a pretty big safety thing and I don't want to risk any sort of stuff happening. Plus, it'll allow me to kind of route these cables and all this stuff a little bit nicer as I put it in piece by piece. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm gonna try to work on these cables, see if I can get these batteries connected. Might need to run to AutoZone or something to get some other terminals, but we'll see. So I'm gonna go work on that and I'll get back to you guys with whatever I come up with. All right, so before I get too far ahead of myself, I also wanted to cover the contactor situation here. I'm using the Panasonic AEV 651As, and they're pretty straightforward, kind of standard in the EV market. And these cables, these two, are the positive and negative to the controller and to the motor. I don't have my battery connected to them yet. That's what I'm working on with these cables, but I'll get there pretty soon. I wanted to go over these pre-charge resistors that I have here because this is a little bit different from what you may have seen in other conversions. This is a permanently wired in pre-charge resistor, and that's not super typical because a lot of people have them linked to the key, so that way you turn the key forward a little bit, you wait, and then you turn it forward again, and then the contactors engage, everything is happy. For this, I permanently wired these in because this now allows me to at any point turn the key forward, these click on, and then I'm ready to go. The system is always pre-charged like this. What I am going to do at some point is install a switch right here to disconnect this if I'm storing this long term, because then that way there'll be no actual circuit made. But when I'm planning on, parking it for the evening and then going out the next day, having the system pre-charged is perfectly fine. I turn the key forward and then I'm ready to go. So these are 25 watt, 500 ohm resistors. I got these off of Amazon for a couple bucks and they should actually work out pretty fine. That should give me enough current in the capacitors in the controller so that no damage happens whenever I turn the key. So I wanted to cover that just so you guys knew. And then the wires, again, this is kind of the reason why I installed this fuse panel, is the wires from this come over to a fused output here. So that way when this fuse panel turns on with the car, the contactors come on as well, engaging the system. So that's kind of how I have this set up, just so you guys know. All right, so it is a couple hours later and I wasn't able to make the progress that I hoped I'd be able to make. And I found some interesting things that I'm gonna have to go through a little bit further with this setup regarding kind of the controller. I think I may have accidentally messed it up when I was testing it a few months ago because I wasn't using pre-charge resistors and I was only using a 12-volt battery, but that's still a significant number of amps to run through empty capacitors. So I may have accidentally damaged it through that process because I tried hooking it up with 3 batteries, which isn't that many volts. It's only 36 volts and the amps that these can push, but the controller still didn't seem happy with it. The motor didn't turn and the wires kind of got hot. So I think I may have accidentally messed something up in the past time. So I'll have to talk to Paul at EPC and see what we can figure out about that controller, because I think that was my fault just messing around with it. Now, in terms of the battery cables, sadly, I wasn't able to get the rest of them done because I went to O'Reilly and AutoZone, but they didn't carry 2-0 size connectors. I think the max they had was 4 gauge, so they were way too small for these cables. I tried buying some cables, but I forgot that these didn't have posts. They are screw-only terminal batteries, and so I got the clamp style that clamp onto the post. Turns out that wouldn't work either, so I have to return those and probably get something on Amazon, which is fine, but it's Sunday night. I don't have a lot more time to work on this, so this is gonna have to be a little bit more postponed until next weekend. But again, I'm very happy with the progress that I was able to make in terms of the wiring, and I did a bunch of tests regarding whether or not the controller was on, which the controller does turn on, so it's good in that sense. The contactors engage when I turn the key. Everything seems pretty happy so far, and there's only a few other things that I'm actually gonna have to wire in. Mainly the headlights that came with this car were not stock. They were aftermarket, and they're actually really nice aftermarket units. It's just that they needed a special connector soldered on. They were just bare wires. So I'm gonna actually use this custom fuse panel as a spot to splice them in, turn on those little halo rings because they were never wired in, and that'll make this car look a little bit more polished in the end. So I'm looking forward to that. There's a couple other things I'm gonna need to use that for, but I haven't bought them yet. There'll probably be some like voltage displays and readouts and stuff on the dashboard, and that'll kind of come up through here. Again, giving me kind of a safe place to wire all this stuff in. So I'm very happy with how it turns out. Now, when I was wiring, I actually found a nice old conduit that used to be kind of set up in the top of the car, and that was used to kind of wire some of these sensors and stuff off to the exhaust and things on the left side of the engine. So what I found is I can actually use that to route my cables from the ECU area over to my fuse panel and the contactors and everything on the left side without it being obtrusive and hanging where it's visible. It kind of tucks it away, organizes it, and keeps it safe. Everything is kind of hidden away and tucked away other than the batteries, which I think will actually give this a pretty clean look when it's all said and done, especially when we get those lithium batteries in here. But right now I'm very happy with how everything is packaged in here. I'm really looking forward to getting this thing actually spinning up. And even if it's not in gear or anything, it'll still be pretty exciting to have the motor react to the car's input. So that's definitely my next step on my checklist. And that's gonna hopefully be the next video. If you guys found this video interesting, hit that like button. It lets me know what you guys do like and don't like, so I can better kind of tailor my content to you guys. And also, if you wanna see these future videos, don't forget to subscribe. It definitely helps out in terms of growing this channel. That's gonna be it for me today. Hope you guys are as excited as I am to see this car on the road. But that's gonna be where I'm gonna have to end it tonight. So hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.